Hi y'all, and welcome to At Home with the Bucklakes. I'm Stephanie Bucklake and welcome to my channel. What you'll be seeing on my channel is things that have to do with the home. I have the privilege of being a stay-at-home wife and mom. We have a 5-month-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. So you'll be seeing a lot of cooking videos. I do homemade baby food, toddler food, meals for the family, desserts, parties, things like that. We'll do some organization, some scheduling, just whatever happens in the home as a stay-at-home wife and mom is what you'll see. I'm going to be filming during my everyday life, so if my hair's done, my clothes have spit up on them or whatever, kids running around, I will be filming. So welcome to At Home with the Bucklakes. Let's have some fun. Today we're going to be making one of our family favorites, an easy crock pot roast. This is a great recipe for when you don't have time to cook, maybe later in the night, or if you just need to throw something on and go, this is the way to go. Now, cooking a roast can be a little bit intimidating, but one time one of my friends made a roast and I've been obsessed with it ever since. And so after a lot of research and combining different recipes, I found that this is the best, easiest, most delicious way to cook a roast. Also, it's pretty nutritious. First and foremost, I want to tell you, before you cook your roast, you want to let it set out on the counter for at least 30 minutes to an hour. That way it can kind of get to room temperature or maybe an even temperature. All the meat will be at an even temperature so you can brown it better and it cooks more evenly. What you will need is a pan. We're going to sear our roast on each side before we throw it in the crock pot. It adds more flavor. If you don't have time, you could skip that step, but it does make it for a more delicious roast. Of course, your roast, I'm using a beef 3-pound roast, crock pot, avocado oil or a healthy fat of your choosing to sear your meat, beef broth, carrots. I'm going to use about a half a pound of carrots. If you like more carrots, go ahead and add more. A half an onion. I'm going to use 6 cloves of garlic. The more garlic, the better. And some potatoes. You'll also need seasonings. At least use a generous amount of salt and pepper, but use your other favorite seasonings to add more flavor. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm going to sear my roast first. So when you're doing beef, you want to cook it on a high temperature. My stove gets really, really hot, so I'm putting mine on about medium, which will be high for other stoves. I'm going to heat my skillet and put about a tablespoon of avocado oil in there. Again, you know my favorite oil is avocado oil. It has a high smoking point and it's good for everything. Baking, cooking, roasting. I'm not sponsored by this brand, but I love this brand, so this is what I'm using. We're going to let my pan get nice and hot, and in the meantime, I will cut my onions. We're just going to cut it into chunks. It doesn't have to be very fine because it will kind of like disintegrate if it's too little while it's in the crock pot. So I'm just going to cut it into thirds. That's ready to go. My potatoes are washed. I'm going to leave the skin on. You are more than welcome to take the skin off. If you have the time, go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to cut them in half and line the bottom of my crock pot with my potatoes. I'm going to check for any bad parts on my potato and just cut that off. My husband loves potatoes, so I got to make sure to put a good amount of potatoes in there. Della is not the biggest fan of potatoes right now. All right. My potatoes are in there. I'm then going to add my carrots. I'm using baby carrots. You are more than welcome to use the big carrots and cut them down to size if you would like. I'll put my onion in. And then I'm going to slice my garlic and throw it in my crock pot as well. For my garlic, I'm going to use the method I always use. Put the garlic under your knife, smack it down with your palm so it loosens the skin, and cut off the hard part. All right, I can smell that my oil is nice and hot. It is moving around the pan freely. So I'll go ahead and start on my roast. You're gonna wanna first dab it completely dry as much as you can. This is going to help get a nice sear on it. Then you're gonna season it. With beef and even potatoes, you're gonna need more salt than you think, okay? So go ahead and put a generous amount of salt on there. Some black pepper. I'm gonna use fresh ground black pepper today because we do want that robust flavor. And then my last ingredient for my roast, I'm gonna use ground thyme. If you wanna use fresh thyme, you are more than welcome to, but the ground thyme really just adds another level of flavor. When I first did this recipe, I was a little scared that the thyme would make it too earthy, but really it's delicious. I'm gonna rub that all around, rinse my hands. And then we'll add my roast to the pan, seasoned side down. Of course, you want to make sure your pan is big enough to fit the roast. I'm then going to dab my other side of the roast with a paper towel, very carefully, and season that other side. We're going to let it sear 5 minutes per each side. Now back to the garlic. My garlic is sliced, so I'm going to throw that over my potatoes, carrots, and onions. And now we're going to season the potatoes and carrots. When you're cooking, of course, you want to season every layer so everything is flavorful. My roast is seasoned, and now I'm going to season these vegetables. Some salt. Again, potatoes need more salt than you would expect. Some garlic powder, double the garlic flavor. Some onion powder. And fresh ground black pepper. Of course, if you don't have fresh ground, use whatever you have. So that is it for my seasonings for my roast. If it was just my husband and I'd be putting some red pepper flakes in there, but it can't be too spicy for Adela, so I'm going to leave it like that. You can see, I hope you can see my veggies are all in my crock pot, and there's plenty of room for my roast to go right on top of there. I'll clean this up, and I have 2 more minutes till I need to flip my roast. The house smells so delicious right now. So excited for the smell. I'm gonna flip my roast over. Look at that color. Yum. Another 5 minutes. I hope you can hear me over the sizzling, but the point of searing this roast is to get more flavor in it. Again, if you don't have time, you can skip this step. I have done it before, but this really gives it a bolder flavor. It's so delicious. This is one of those recipes that's gonna make you hungry all day long if you stay in the house because it just smells so, so good. But when you finally get to eat it, it's gonna be so rewarding. All right, so my pot roast is done searing, so I'm gonna transfer that to my crock pot. Be very careful. Look at that color. That looks so good. I hope you can see that. We'll put that in our crock pot. And now, finally, our beef broth. Would you like to help Mommy with this one? Yeah. All right, now I have my little helper. We're going to add the beef broth. So my husband and I love a brothy roast because we like the potatoes and the roast to be like sitting in the juice and like it just gets so good. So we're gonna do 2.5 cups of beef broth, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Beef broth.
It's like green.
What color is that?
That's enough.
No, Now we're gonna pour it around our roast. Does this smell good? Now all of our liquid is in there. I'm gonna go ahead.
I'm gonna do that.
You wanna put the lid on?
Mhm.
Good job. Now can you turn the dial for me to low? I'm gonna go ahead and turn my crock pot on to low. Again. Awesome. All right, so I put my 3-pound roast in my crock pot on low. So I will leave that in for at least 6 hours. If it's not cooked by that 6-hour mark, then I'll crank it to high and leave it in for an hour more. The rule of thumb for our roast goes an hour a pound. So my roast is 3 pounds. So if I was gonna cook it on high, I would cook it on high for 3 hours. I'm cooking it on low, so I'm gonna double that time and cook it for 6 hours. How you'll be able to tell your roast is done is by sticking a fork in it and slowly twisting it. If it falls apart easily or pulls apart easily, then it's ready. If not, leave it in for a little bit longer. If you need to leave it in and you're running low on time, go ahead and crank it to high and let it sit for another hour. This roast you can serve as is. Just get all the meat, potatoes, juice, and carrots out and put it in a bowl and enjoy it that way. Or you can put it over rice. That's another good way. Or enjoy it like my husband does with some bread and butter. If you want to serve it as separate pieces, take your roast out, let it rest for about 10 minutes, then shred it. And put your potatoes and your carrots to the side. If you want to thicken the juice from what the roast has been cooking in, you can put it on the stove on low and let it simmer for about 10 minutes until the sauce thickens. It has been a little over 6 hours, so I'm ready to check my roast. I am going to take a fork, put it in my roast, and it is still giving me a little bit of pushback, so I'm just gonna flip it. I'm just gonna flip it over. It still smells so good. But I'm still gonna let that cook on low for another hour. Now we eat at about 6 p.m. so another hour will put me at 5 and I'll check it. And if need be, I'll turn it up to high. So I'll see you back in an hour. All right, so it's been a total of 7 hours so far that my roast has been on low. We're gonna give it another check. And it is still a bit tough. When I'm sticking my fork in there, it's not easily twisting or falling apart. So it's now time to put this baby on high. I'm confident that in the next hour with it on high, it'll be fork tender and ready to eat. All right, so it's been an hour that my pot roast has been on high. Let's go ahead and check it. Yes, it is finally ready. Oh, that's gonna be so good. My pot roast is ready, I can tell, because when I put my fork in, it's twisting and coming apart very easily. So that means it's ready. I'm going to shred it all in the pot so we can just eat it as one big, delicious bowl of pot roast with those potatoes and the carrots in there. It's gonna be so good. I guarantee you and your family will really enjoy this recipe, so I hope you give it a try. Thanks so much for watching. Have a blessed day.